Recently, the Nuwa Population Research Institute released the 2024 China Fertility Cost Report. The report indicates that raising a child in China from birth to adulthood, that is, from age 0 to 17, requires an average of 538,000. When considering the cost of raising a child through college, this figure rises to 680,000 RMB in 2023. The average disposable income per capita for urban and rural residents nationwide was 39,218 RMB. Based on the report's estimated average cost of raising a child to adulthood, which is 538,000 RMB per, this implies that raising a child in China until they turn 18 equates to 13.7 years of an individual's income, translating to 76% of an adult's annual income and 36% of a family's income among the countries listed in the table. This figure is higher than all other countries with available data except for South Korea, which is well known for having the lowest fertility rate globally, with the latest fertility rate data at merely 0.72, meaning that on average a couple has only 0.72 children. The fertility rate in Seoul is even more exaggerated at just 0.55. Of course, Shanghai in our country is not far behind, with a total fertility rate of only 0.6 last year. Have you ever wondered why, despite the high cost of raising children in society, our elders choose to turn a blind eye and continue to pressurize marriage and childbirth in unison? The answer is quite straightforward. Ting's one reason is the old generation's experientialism at work, and the other is that elders are not the ones bearing the responsibility for the costs of raising children. At the end of the day, the issue of raising children is fundamentally an economic issue. Next, I will take you through the economic aspects of this issue, setting aside emotions and discussing the social issue of childbirth purely from the perspective of cost-benefit analysis. In the old days of our ancestors, where the upbringing model was simply providing food for growth and relying on oneself, the actual cost of raising children was not high. However, the benefits were long-term and stable, with free and loyal labor. After incurring certain costs to help their children settle down, they could use traditional culture to bind their children to support them in their old age and see them off at the end of life. This is also the fundamental reason why the old society preferred boys over girls, as boys could provide more labor and help parents fulfill the important function of old age care. Raising a girl, on the other hand, offered a lower return on labor and could not complete the old age care for parents. Therefore, in poorer areas, girls were often referred to as a loss of money, and there was a fear of not having a boy, as there would be no one to support them in their old age. This led to the birth of the ancient Chinese folk custom of betrothal gifts. The so-called betrothal gift is actually a lump sum paid by the man to the bride's family, after marrying, compensating for the cost incurred in raising the girl. From then on, the girl, like a commodity, belonged to the husband's family, and all future holding costs and benefits were transferred to the husband's family, although it seems cold-blooded existence is rational. Why did ancient China develop the custom of betrothal gifts? In fact, it was to prevent families from losing too much by raising girls compared to boys, thus avoiding artificial selection and the disappearance of a large number of female infants, leading to an imbalance in the gender ratio. Excessive betrothal gifts were also a balancing mechanism evolved by rural China to ensure continuous reproduction. However, in modern society, especially after the one-child policy, with the increase in income and only one child per family, coupled with the emphasis on education in East Asian internal competition and Confucian culture, the cost of raising children has continued to rise in the vortex. The surge in housing prices has also played a role in this. Not long ago, I believe everyone has heard of cases like a Shanghai University graduate working for 30 years. Absolutely. All of this has made the cost of raising children gradually outweigh the benefits. The costs mentioned here not only financial, but also include the physical costs of childbirth, the time and opportunity costs of companionship, and the emotional costs of raising children in the increasingly competitive present. These costs are also gradually increasing. The more developed the area, the more severe the competition. According to the China Fertility Cost Report, the average cost of raising a child to adulthood in urban and rural areas nationwide is 667,000 RMB and 365,000 RMB respectively. As the city with the highest child-rearing intensity in China, Shanghai's average cost of raising a child exceeds 1 million RMB. Many young people may not be aware of these specific data, but in such a developed information age, various sharings of parenting experiences and complaints about costs have long been absorbed. Any young person with a bit of sense can easily calculate that the cost of raising a child far exceeds the benefits, so there is no motivation to do so. From an economic and profit perspective, both the older generation's crazy childbearing and the newer generation's sterilization are very market-oriented normal behaviors. However, as mentioned earlier, our elders are mostly still in the experientialism of having more children and more blessing. When you complain to them about the high cost of raising children, you often get responses like, "We didn't have much money back then. But we raised you well." Or, if there are similar arguments in the future, please directly forward this video to your parents to end the debate. If your parents simply start from the perspective of architecture and believe that having children can help you in your old age and bring you benefits, then they are well-intentioned, but their cognition is stuck in the past and has not kept up with the current high costs of raising and taking care of children. But if their salary is the following situation, then you have to be careful. Whether it's ancient people or the older generation, the benefits of having children at that time were greater than the costs. But times have changed, and now the cost of having children outweighs the benefit. However, our elders do not directly bear the current costs of raising and taking care of children. At most, they help take care of the children and contribute to living costs. But now, the evolution of urban costs is more concentrated on education. Whether it's the cost of preschool education, the implicit cost of school district housing, the additional cost of tutoring classes, or the cost of university and graduate studies, as well as the cost of higher education abroad. Even now, most students who have just graduated and gone to work in big cities still need their parents to continue to provide the initial funds to get by in a foreign land. And most of these costs are taken out of their parents' pockets. Those who have seen my previous videos, fans of the devaluation of Chinese academics, should understand that now our country's education and academics are all very competitive. Graduates are not as good as dogs, and doctors are also in deep trouble. Graduates are basically 25 years old, and doctors are close to 30 years old. Now, colleges and universities are still continuously increasing the school system, and the general delay in graduation has become an unwritten rule. Raising a child to graduate and start making money independently may not only take 18 years, but 28 years. But will the main cost be borne by the grandparents, even if they have children at the age of 25, and their next generation also has children at the age of 25? Then when the grandchildren are 28 years old, the grandparents are already close to 80 years old. They are most likely to take care of themselves. Ordinary families of the elderly at this time, it is the time to spend money on medical treatment and to find nursing. Not to reach out to their children, for money is already a great fortune. Where can they get spare money to support their grandchildren? In this way, the actual cost paid by the grandparents for their grandchildren is not high, but by urging marriage and giving birth, they can enjoy the emotional value of being surrounded by their children in the end and obtain a supreme family status through traditional culture. Unexpectedly, they all want to be the boss at home when they're old. Let their children have more children, which is obviously a thing where the benefits outweigh the costs for them. Starting from the perspective of economics alone, the elders have transferred the costs and gained positive benefits. But the children who are transferred are not stupid and are unwilling to take over. This has led to the current contradictions between the two generations in marriage. In fact, many elders themselves can't explain this principle, but most of them understand in their hearts that they are not losing. As for whether they have calculated the children's accounts or not is unknown. As for whether your parents have the above mentality, you can test it by letting them bear all the expenses of their future grandchildren from birth to work. I guess there will be many old people who will break through immediately. After knowing your attitude is firm, they may even stop urging to give birth. This contradiction, to put it bluntly, is simply the contradiction between benefits and costs. All other various rhetoric is a cover-up. The world is busy for profit, and everyone starts from their own interests. This interest is not only money, but also includes emotions, face status, and a series of implicit benefits. The elders often pursue this kind of implicit benefit and then put on a moral coat to force their children to submit. Some young people are smart and think through this point, but most people are easily fooled under constant urging, and then they turn around and criticize people who don't have children as selfish. In fact, the parents who squeeze the value from their children are the truly selfish ones. What the elders want is often the reason used most, and those who say you don't have children are selfish and must be the beneficiaries of your children. You can type the reasons for being urged to give birth in the barrage. In addition, I think having children is not such a simple thing because it is a major event that determines a person's life. Having a person and killing a person are not much different from the perspective of physiology and ethics. Moreover, we often say life and death, and life is ahead of death. But it is terrible not to think too much and have children. This is the current situation of most parents in our country. Of course, many of the underlying causes of our country's current economic problems are more or less related to the end of the population growth cycle. Our country's revival also needs enough people to take over and give birth. There's no problem, but we can't talk, and we can't treat newborns and young people as dry batteries, as tools for paying pensions, as cheap labor to ensure our country's status as a manufacturing power. The birth population and young population are not cold statistical figures, but people with blood and flesh because of urging to give birth, causing a large number of parents who don't know why, blindly have children. I think it is no less than a crime. Only by providing real gold and silver incentives and introducing various policies to restrict the vortex can the current high cost of raising children be less than the return and fundamentally change the current young people's idea of self-sterilization, making our country's rise more warm and allowing more people to witness that historical moment.